My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. And this is a happy holidays episode. And to you out there, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is you might celebrate. I hope that you have a wonderful week with friends and family. That is what this is all about. And it has been an honor to have you spend a lot of your year with me. And I really appreciate that. You know, being at the end of the year now gives me an opportunity to reflect back on how this year has gone. And I am very, very thankful for the opportunity that all of you have given me with your support of the show, the messages you send in, everything telling me how you love the show, how you're sharing it with friends. It has been wonderful this year, and I really appreciate that. It's been a wonderful gift that you have given me. And I am excited to be able to give a holiday gift back to some of you. And if you have watched my last few episodes, you know that I am giving away a free box break of Prism First Off the Line basketball. This is a box that is worth somewhere between $300 and $1,000, depending when you bought it during the Dutch auction that Panini did a few weeks ago. Prism First Off the Line basketball. And as a holiday thank you to all of you out there, I am giving away all of the cards in this box for free as part of a free live box break. And guess what? During today's episode, I am going to announce the 10 winners. That will come towards the end of the episode today. I will announce the 10 winners, and then the box break will be live on my YouTube channel Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday, December the 23rd at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is when the live box break will occur. Even if you are not one of the 10 winners, I would love to have you part of the live box break by joining the YouTube channel at 10 p.m. Monday night, December the 23rd to watch the box break. I'm really excited about doing that for you guys to celebrate the year and also to celebrate having over 1,000 members on our Discord server. It's amazing how many great people we've had join the Discord chat server and how much great conversation is on the Discord chat server. And if you haven't joined yet, you can join for free by going to sportscardinvestor.com and clicking on the Discord link in the main menu bar. Folks, I've got a great episode for you today. Now, you know that StockX has been a sponsor of this show for the month of December, and they have been giving Sports Card Investor listeners a special promotion, promo code SCIPOD, which gets you $10 off any purchase of $50 or more on StockX. Again, promo code SCIPOD. And folks, today we are going to have a special treat. I have the founder of StockX, Josh Luber, who is joining me for today's show. And folks, Josh has built StockX into, get this, a $1 billion company. StockX is worth, according to the investors, the big investors who have put money into StockX recently, they are worth $1 billion. And the really cool thing is Josh built this company up from scratch with a lot of hustle and really with what started as a side hustle. And we're going to hear Josh's story today. So this interview that I'm about to do with Josh, yes, we talk about StockX and we talk about their role in the sports card world. And yes, we talk about some of the really, really unique things StockX is doing that makes them a lot different from other online marketplaces like eBay and ComC. And we're going to talk about how StockX works. We're going to talk about bids and asks and the different terminology StockX uses and how it's so similar to the stock market. All of that's really great information that you're going to want to hear so you get a better understanding of what StockX is and how it may play into your ability to buy or sell cards. And by the way, we get some really good tips during the episode today about ways you can buy or sell on StockX to get maximum value. That's all going to be wonderful, and that's great information. But what I found even cooler than any of that was hearing Josh's story, because man, you want to talk about an entrepreneur who put a ton of hustle in on the side and then got his big break, had a great idea, hustled to make it happen, and built a $1 billion company. What a great story. So please join me for this interview today. This is a fairly long episode. We spend a lot of time talking. I think you guys are going to really find it compelling. This will be my only regular episode this week. Since Wednesday is Christmas, I'm not going to put out an episode on Wednesday. So if you need to chop the episode up and watch little bits of it at a time, since it's a little bit longer, go ahead and do that because you're going to want to hear the full story, and especially the part about Josh's entrepreneurial journey, which comes a little bit later in the episode. And then, of course, once the interview wraps, I'm going to be giving you the 10 names of the folks who have won their way into tomorrow night's box break, into Monday's box break. So stay tuned for that. But without further ado, I am very pleased to welcome to Sports Card Investor, the founder of StockX, Josh Luber. Hey, Josh, thanks for joining me. My audience is excited to hear more about StockX. When I met you a few months ago, when we first started kind of talking about StockX's model and the fact you were getting into trading cards, it really intrigued me what you were doing because I thought from an investor standpoint, it was really interesting, your model. So why don't we actually start with you kind of telling me a little bit more about the history of StockX, how you got into trading cards to begin with, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into how StockX is working with trading cards.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I feel like both of us were starting to get our businesses into trading cards almost at the exact same time, and really coming at it from a pretty similar angle. Both obviously with the lens on investing. Just a quick background, sort of me personally. Most people, if they know of me or of StockX today, it's generally around sneakers, and I'm certainly a big sneaker collector, but I collected cards before I collected sneakers. I am 41 years old, so I have like the exact same story as every other 41-year-old card collector today, which is like, I was right in the middle of that junk wax era, 87 and 92. Like that was, like my sweet spot for collecting cards.
And by the way, we can see some of that behind you. Those backgrounds are awesome. I love the uncut sheets there. That's really, really cool to have it up in your office.
Yeah, I spend a disproportionate amount of my time at StockX decorating the office. Each of the conference rooms have different themes. So there's like a Nike room and an Adidas room and a Louis Vuitton room. And this is the cards room. And literally, we were just finishing up. And behind me, you can see 79 tops and 85 tops. And there's an 89 Fleer up there. There's a Duncan rookie over here. There's a Kobe rookie over there. So like this is what happens when they let me decorate the place is you get rooms with card backdrops. But
man, that's awesome.
Years are from like when I was deep in collecting back then. And so, I stopped collecting like a lot of people as I went to college, and the card market crashed in the mid to late 90s. And but what was interesting as when we started StockX in 2015, and the focus was on sneakers, is even today, I think trading cards are a better product for StockX than any of the other ones that we sell. What we did was we took the way that the stock market works and applied that to consumer goods, applied the way that people buy and sell stocks, that you get to the true market price of a share of stock, and how those buyers and sellers come together to consummate that transaction. And we applied it to sneakers and then streetwear and then watches and handbags and collectible toys. And in all those areas where it worked really well, we were actually taking consumer goods and we were turning them into investable assets. But trading cards have always been investable assets. So there was always like in the back of my mind as we were doing this of like, man, like I think cards might be really good for this. And so we finally got to the scale in our business with the rest of it that it made sense to go on to the next vertical. And I actually have been leading this myself personally and said, listen, I'm going to take ownership of that as we get this off the ground. And so it's been super fun, as we've been getting into this, for me to be back so much into cards. And I started collecting again personally about a year and a half ago. And then it ramped up even more as I got more into StockX. But it's just been awesome just to be back in the hobby and then building this.
Well, welcome back to the hobby. First of all, it's great to have you back in the hobby. Thanks. I think your story, as you said, is like so many people even watching this show, where they were big collectors as a kid, myself included, out of the hobby for a while, have gotten back into it, and are now looking at it as adults, looking at it, not just from a collectible, lens, but also through an investable lens, right? You can't help separate that now as an adult when you look at the hobby. You made a statement that was really I'd say a pretty dramatic statement. I want to make sure the audience picked up on it, and that is that you think trading cards are actually a better platform for StockX even than sneakers. You guys have had such success on the sneaker side, and you're so StockX's growth is so paralleled with the growth of sneaker flipping, and you've been such a big part of that growth. Tell me a little bit, I guess, about the scale that you achieved on the sneaker side and why you think trading cards could be even bigger.
Sure. Yeah. So, sneakers was the first category. We launched in February of 2016. So it's been not quite 4 years. And by the end of 2017, sneakers had hit a scale where, we were, I think by that point, even by then, we were the largest sneaker marketplace in the world. This past summer, we did our latest financing round, and the company was valued at over $1 billion. And and probably about 75% of our business today and then is sneakers. So we buy and sell a lot of sneakers. We're just the marketplace, right? We don't actually buy and sell. We're the marketplace. We're just kind of like an evolution of eBay, where we connect people to buy and sell that. And part of the reason that we've grown so fast, and part of the reason we've helped the market grow so fast, is really what we've done. And we can talk all about the model and the data and the fact that we authenticate sneakers, and there's a lot to this. But like at the core, we've just made sneakers more accessible. We've just made it easier for people to be able to buy them. People that maybe didn't want to wade through eBay to figure out how to buy sneakers, or were concerned they were going to get a fake pair of sneakers on eBay, or didn't know how to manage backdoor trading that happened at sneaker stores. And so we just added this layer of just accessibility. There's a lot of things that go into that, but like that's the key. And that's actually kind of what I see as part of the value that we'll be able to bring to cards, is as you have all these people that are either new people coming into the hobby or old people, or older collectors coming back into it. It's hard. Like it's hard to figure out how to buy cards. It's hard to navigate through eBay and have to keep toggling back and forth to close listings to see what a price is, and to, I mean, it's difficult. And so we just want to be able to make it easier. And that's really why what we've done in the other categories, like that's the part that's most translatable. But the thing that from a consumer standpoint that was always been a little bit difficult for really the primary market is to understand that, look, sneakers have a retail price. A pair of Air Jordan 1s cost $150, and they should cost $150. And the secondary market has always been this very negative perception in the sneaker industry. Well, trading cards, there only is the secondary market, right? A Zion, Prism doesn't have a retail price. The box does, but like a Zion Prism doesn't have a retail price. It only has a market price, and that market price changes. But so the industry we're already used to just the concept of, no, there's just a market price. This idea of what's retail, what's resale, retailers care about that, brands care about that, Nike and Adidas, but the card industry is not that, and that's a really exciting thing to look at that, because it just and that goes to the core of really why StockX has been valuable.
Yeah, and I love your point is right on that for someone getting back into the hobby, it is complicated these days. And I mean, if you take, for example, let's say, last year, Luka, obviously a Luka Doncic premium card to buy, but you start going on eBay and you search for Luka Doncic cards, and you're going to get, 30 different sets. You're going to get within each set, there's, 20 different variations of his card. Some are graded, some aren't graded. You have, I mean, it's kind of wide open in terms of, oh my gosh, what should I get? And then even more problematic on eBay, you never fully know what you're getting because people game the search algorithm. So even if you, for example, you want to get a Luka Doncic Prism Silver because you've heard that's, kind of one of the premium investable cards to get, and you want to get it graded, you want to get it in a PSA 10, that seems straightforward enough. But if you type in Luka Doncic Prism Silver PSA 10 into eBay, you're going to get results up that are going to be muddled with cards that aren't actually graded, that they put PSA 10 question mark in the title just to show up in the search.
Or PGS 9.5 that says,
right.
And, yeah.
You're going to get cards from different variations like Select, different sets like that, which are not Prism, but they're putting in keywords to make it show up underneath those different sets. So how does StockX make this experience easier compared to the confusion that can be caused on a site like eBay?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways, but the core, the most focused part of it is on StockX, it is a product-based experience. There is one product page for one product, as opposed to eBay. eBay is a listing-based experience where anybody can go sell whatever they want. But if you want a Luka Prism Silver PSA 10 and you search for that, you're going to get thousands of results. And a lot of them are going to be a Luka Silver PSA 10, but like you said, a lot are going to be other things as well. Well, in the actual stock market, if you want to buy a share of Nike stock, there's one ticker symbol for Nike. And every bid and every ask and every sale happens at that one place. So there's one product page for a Luka Silver PSA 10, and everything happens right there. You can't go sell a Luka Silver PSA 10 anywhere else on the site, and you can't buy it anywhere else on the site. So like all of that nonsense just goes out the door in terms of trying to even figure out, to your point, which is the right one, what I'm trying to buy. Second, but once you do that and you bring everyone to the same table, everyone's at that one product page, well, now just the transparency of understanding what are people selling it for and what are people trying to buy, it's just that much easier to figure out, as opposed to scrolling through all the listings and trying to, well, let me sort this one by lowest first, well, let me sort this one by highest first, or no, like it's all right there. And so you can see every bid and every ask all in one place. And that level of transparency, again, we're just copying how the stock market works, where you have all the bids asked in the same place. That's how you get to a true market price of any asset, any sneaker, any trading card. And so that's a really like core part of the difference between StockX and most marketplaces. Most marketplaces are listing based, and it's a really powerful part. And again, we're copying how the stock market works because it's worked pretty well.
Sure. And I imagine by having all of that information consolidated down to like one product listing like that, it also makes seeing historical pricing easier and more clear. And that's another big problem with services like eBay. So I preach to my audience, one of my top tips for new investors and new collectors getting into the hobby is that you should never, ever make a purchase without understanding what that same card has sold for in the recent past. Otherwise, you're bound to get ripped off. But just like it's difficult to find the right card on eBay that you're trying to buy, it's even more difficult sometimes to find price comparables of the card you're trying to buy, because if you use it, whether you look on eBay for completed items or whether you use a third-party database tool, it's calling up all kinds of noise. Again, all of those things that aren't really that card. So you could end up thinking the card is worth an amount that it's not actually worth because you're looking at a comparable that came up in the search, but it isn't actually quite the same variation of the card.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal point, and that's exactly what has happened over time. The similarities between sneakers in 2015 when we started this and cards right now, it's almost uncanny, right? I mean, back then we were doing the same thing. We were looking at eBay sales, closed auctions to figure out what's a fair price for a pair of sneakers. And today, like that's, when I'm buying and selling cards, like that's the first place I'm going right now to look for. And it isn't easy. Sometimes you can find the sales, but like, if you go look for Luka prices, and you're not looking at the dates right there, and you look at dates from before the season started, well, that's not a very reasonable price for what the cards are going for now.
Or even 2 weeks ago, depending, right. With Luka, I mean, the card market for newer players right now is up and down and up and down, and it's hard to sort through and understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have so few data points in there, right? You may find, Luka's there's more transactions than others, but right now as people are trying to figure out, all the new Prism rookie prices. Mm-hmm. But like, there's not that many out there right now, and there's even fewer graded right now, right?
Sure.
So, by having everything in one place, that you can at least get all of the data you need. You go look at some of these sneaker product pages that we have now, and the historical sales. I mean, it literally looks like Google Finance or Yahoo Finance. And 2 weeks ago or last week, there was a shoe called the Jordan 11 Bread. This is a classic Air Jordan model. This is a shoe that Michael Jordan wore back in '96. Just a classic shoe that Nike had re-released. We sold over 12,000 pairs in the first weekend. And so like the amount of data you get when you have 12,000 sales in a weekend from pricing, I mean, it's amazing, right? It's like true real-time pricing. And that's a really powerful thing to have for whether you're buying or selling.
Yeah, and I like the idea of that being brought into the trading card market. I really do. I think that the more knowledge and the more of a free, fair market that's very well compartmentalized for buyers and sellers to understand, the better it's going to be from everybody getting in from an investment standpoint. So I like the fact that you've oriented your site around product pages specifically and have included that historical pricing. It's as time goes on and you get more and more transactions on StockX, that's going to become a really powerful tool for people looking to invest in cards.
Yeah. Look, it does matter, even if you're just a consumer and you just want to buy a pair of sneakers to own. But like, if you're an investor, you really want to take out all of the noise of like, am I getting ripped off? Am I not? Like, just make the decision. Like, do you want to bet on Zion? Do you want to bet on Ja? Do you want to bet on Luka? Like, that's fine. You can make those bets and know that you're buying at the real, true, fair market price, and not also have to worry about, am I getting ripped off or trying to it's just, there's so much, like, you just don't have to worry. And that's, by the way, that's why StockX is anonymous, right? So if you go to, this is one of the other sort of major differences between eBay and other marketplaces. If you go to eBay and you search them, you're going to see who that seller is. And you're going to look at how many reviews they have and how many sales they have and all that. But if you buy a share of Nike stock on the New York Stock Exchange, it's totally anonymous. There is an actual seller on the other end of that specific trade selling you that specific share, but you don't know who that is. You don't care. All you care about is the price you're paying for it, and it clears to the New York Stock Exchange, so it's good. And so for that reason, StockX is completely anonymous. You will never see who's on the other end of that transaction. And it doesn't matter, because all those cards pass through us. Sellers, after they sell it, they send it to us. We make sure that the case is not cracked. It's the card it's supposed to be, right? It is what it's supposed to be, and then we send it off to the buyer. In sneakers, we actually have to authenticate the products and make sure that they're real. There's more that goes into that, because we don't have the benefit of PSA and BGS in sneakers and other categories. But that's also why I think cards are such a perfect product for us, because we already have industry standards around authentication and grading. And that's great to be able to say, a PSA 10 or a BGS 9, 9.5, whatever it is, and to know, and also that just helps the data, helps everything to standardize around that. And all these things, by the way, it's all about standardization.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I assume then that you deal only with graded cards. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's right. So today it's only graded cards and a select few unopened boxes.
Right.
As we've been slowly moving into that in terms of just some of the bigger stuff. The same thing as sneakers, we don't sell used sneakers. If you sell used sneakers, you would have to have pictures, and you'd have to describe how. In the same way, like, if I'm going to sell raw cards, like, you're going to want to see a picture and understand what that looks like. And so for that reason, we only do graded.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's as to use a comparison to buying stock, as you said, if you buy a share of Nike stock, that's a share of Nike stock. No matter who you buy it from, it's the exact same thing. So in cards, you need to be buying a graded card so you can ensure the condition. A PSA 10 is a PSA 10 is a PSA 10. So buying and selling a PSA 10, it matters now less who you're buying it from, because it's a consistent card that you're going to get. And I guess with you guys serving as the middleman, you could double check to make sure that is the card before it gets shipped off to the person who bought it.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, last week we sold we're talking about it, but we sold it was a Luka silver prism from last year, and we got the slab, and it said PSA, it said Luka prism silver, but it was a base. It was a base in the slab, like, it was clearly an error. At PSA, and rather than, if that person sends it back to PSA, they'll say, no problem, we'll label it correctly. Right.
Yeah.
And they were trying to sell it to somebody as, and we said, hey, sorry, and sent it back. And so, like, that's the extent of where we step in, right? Where we can see it's obviously a different card. Or again, if the case is cracked or the case has been tampered with, et cetera. And we've spoken to both grading companies so that we can understand what to look for in terms of if something's been tampered with, or et cetera. One thing I should note is, we don't yet have a big catalog of vintage cards. And part of that is because, as particularly as you get into some of the lower grades, a PSA 5 might look 6 different ways.
Right.
Centering and depending on the cards. And people care about that. And so for now, we're not going there. We're going to, build the business first on the cards that are newer cards that you don't have those issues and don't have as much, sort of eye appeal issues. But then we'll work through that in the same way and figure out what's the right way to add those cards so that people feel comfortable if they're buying, an Aaron rookie, of what is a PSA. And we'll see, or maybe we won't, right? But like, we won't add that stuff unless we feel confident that people can buy and sell on the model and not have to worry about, does it show up? Is it going to be not what I wanted? And that's key, right? To your point, that share of Nike stock, you never worry about what you're going to get. Share of Nike stock is a share of Nike stock, and that's the core to StockX.
Yeah, makes sense. So talk a little bit about the buying experience, because I know you've got bids and you've got asks. And so that whole thing's a little different than what people would be used to on like purchasing on an eBay or a ComC or something like that.
Yeah. When we started, we really stressed out about, are we going to use bid and ask and the sort of stock market terminology, or are we going to use, buy and sell the way that like all e-commerce sites work? And ultimately, we decided that we would stick with bid and ask, because that's truly what it is. Now, you can still buy something on StockX without having to place a bid. You can just go there and buy it at the market price. You can also just go sell it at whatever the highest bid is. But like that concept of having bids and asks, it's really, really powerful, because what you're getting is, particularly, and you mentioned from a buying experience, is you're getting to see where the market is and what everyone is willing to sell it for. So an ask is just a listing for sale, right? So if you have an ask for we're on Lucas Silver's, but if you have an ask for a Lucas Silver PSA 10 at I don't know, what's it now, about 1,700.
Little less now, unfortunately, because I still own a few of them. Unfortunately, a little less, but yes, they were 1,700 was a reasonable price a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
I think this is like an example of like crazy overreaction, because like this is not a serious injury.
Right.
Out for a couple of weeks. Like I think it's time to buy Luka for the next couple of weeks, if you ask me.
It might be. His prices have gone down considerably. I did an episode a few weeks ago where I said I actually think it's time to sell Luka, but that's when he was just had come off of his peak. And then ever since I did that episode, it's gone down and down, and then the injury occurred, and then it went down and down some more. So I actually agree. I think we might be getting towards a time where it's actually a good time to start buying Luka, maybe right before he comes back from the injury.
I know. I bought a lot of Luka over the summer.
Yeah, it's a good time to do it.
I am not saying that I anywhere near predicted what happened, but in a lot of ways, listening to some of the advice that you've been giving, but I was watching what was happening in Mahomes those first couple of weeks of the NFL season, and I was like, man, who could have the same type of thing happen in the NBA? And so I bought a lot of Luka right before the season started, and obviously was feeling really good about it. And listening to your advice, was thinking about, do I want to sell off some of it? And now I'm thinking, like, I think I'm gonna buy a little bit more before he comes back. I feel like he's still, top 4 player in the league. Like it's pretty awesome to think.
Top 4 player in the league as a super young second-year guy. So yeah, I agree. Long term, he's got an incredible career in front of him. Short term, we're dealing with the volatility of the market.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I think some of the analysis that you were looking at in order to make the calls around that, and sort of comparing it to like, Giannis and some of these other rookies and the scarcity that's out there. One of the interesting things, again, to sort of bring it back to buying on StockX is, look, we don't know how many Giannis silver, prisms were produced. We don't know how many Luka prisms were produced, and we have the pop reports, and that is one data point. But what's interesting on StockX is you end up with relative supply, right? And this is like how you've been looking at it. It's like relative supply of pop reports gives you something. It's the same thing that happens on StockX. We don't know how many sneakers are produced. Nike does not tell the world how many sneakers are produced, but you very quickly get to relative supply against the other shoes by seeing how many are being bought and sold and at what prices. And so a lot of people will then go and before they make those decisions and look and try to figure out, right? You look at a lowest ask. If there's one, let's just say it's 1,700. There's one Lucas Silver PSA 10 selling for $1,700. Okay, well there's one. That's a whole lot different if the lowest is 1,700, right? But there's 40 right behind it, and there's one for 1,725, and one for 1,750, and one for 1,800, one for all of a sudden, like now I know, like, hey, you know what? If I don't get that one for 1,700, it's no problem. I get the next one for 1,725. Yeah. And if there's only one at 17, or maybe the next one there's 2, and the next one is 2,200. Well, that's a much different marketplace, knowing that, oh man, if I don't get that one for 1,700, then the next one's not, until 2,100. And you would see something like that on something that has a lot less supply in the marketplace, right? You might see that on, I don't know, cards from like a Giannis or something like that, that there's just less supply in the market.
Yep.
understanding the supply of asks all in one place to make a buying decision is super powerful, right? It's like if you go to eBay and you can only find one listing there of something, you're going to think a whole lot different about it than if you see 50 listings about it, right? And it just makes it that much all compact all in one place to see not only how many, but organized very neatly in terms of the price distribution to see from 1,700 to say 2,500, how many are in there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that information is not easy to find on eBay. I've actually done, I've wanted to look at that before. Like, actually, it's funny because earlier today I was looking at some of Donovan Mitchell's cards, and I was curious how many optic hollows were out there of Mitchell from 2017. And so I was having to do these searches and then actually count, and then of course skip the ones that were not actually the right card that were showing up in the search. So I'm scrolling down pages of eBay doing a manual count to figure out what the actual current for sale population on eBay is of a card like that, which is a really arcane way of doing it. So so it sounds like your product pages have really simplified that process and actually give the buyer some intelligence around, okay, here's how many of these cards of this type are existing for sale versus how many cards of this, this other type.
Exactly. By the way, I used to do that exact same thing. The company that I created that became StockX, it was called Campless. And Campless was a price guide for sneakers. And we were pulling in eBay data in order to create that price guide. And there'd be a lot of times where I'd have to go out and try to figure out different parts of that in terms of different analysis. And it was a lot of that. I definitely remember nights of like counting eBay auctions or counting Facebook group posts or counting Instagram sales to go back and try to estimate whatever analysis I was trying to do to try to figure it out. It was really similar. One of the reasons that I really love your podcast is it does a lot of the same analysis that we were doing back in 2015. Campless became a blog that was kind of like Freakonomics for sneakers, where we were doing these like really just like interesting analytic questions about the sneaker market. And it wasn't necessarily for investing because, again, sneakers is a slightly different lens, but it was a very similar thing of trying to figure out, well, I don't know, how many Jordan 11 breads from 2006 are still out there? I don't know. Let's count eBay sales. So, by the way, so do you think that Donovan Optic Hollows are going to do what Luka Optic Hollows did?
No, not necessarily. I do like Donovan. He's one of the guys who I bought, but no, not necessarily. I happen to be looking at a bunch of the 2017 rookie class today and trying to compare Jason Tatum's volume versus Donovan Mitchell's volume versus John Collins' volume, which is just kind of trying to do an interesting comparison of who's moving the most from the 2017 class right now and how many of each are being sold online right now.
That's a great question, by the way. Because I don't understand why Tatum and Brown aren't moving more right now, because those guys are playing awesome.
Yeah, they're playing really well. Yeah. John Collins has been, his sales. He's been out on a suspension for 25 games. His sales have dried up to an absolute nothing. Like, it's very, very little activity right now around John Collins. Understandable because of the suspension, but he's going to be back in a few games, so it could be kind of that's what I was looking at specifically. Is now an interesting time to potentially get in on John Collins before he re-arrives back into the league.
I bought a couple more Collins once he went out with suspension. I doubled down on De'Aaron Fox when he was out injury. Yep. Right. I feel like, it's short-term stuff. And like, if you believe in those two guys beforehand, there's no reason that you shouldn't, afterwards. And so we'll see. I assume that maybe for a later pod, you're going to tell us your full analysis.
Yes. You'll have to wait for that one.
Fair enough.
So if I were to go to StockX, and of course I've done this, so I've had a couple of different experiences on StockX. Before my last podcast, I went on StockX and I found a Drew Brees rookie at a price that was actually a little bit below what it had just recently sold for on eBay. So in that case, so there was a ask, essentially someone selling the card at a price that I felt comfortable pulling the trigger on that card right at that moment. So it's basically like the equivalent of a buy it now transaction on eBay where you can buy right away. But another buying experience I've had on StockX is I wanted to go get a Giannis card. But I felt like the prices, the current asks for some of Giannis's cards were a little bit above market, a little bit above what things had sold for recently on eBay. So in that case, I didn't buy anything right away. I put in a bid. And so that process is essentially different than what you would ever, I guess it's the equivalent of making an offer to somebody on eBay. You're basically saying, hey, you've got it listed for this, which is the ask price. I'm willing to pay this, which is the bid price. But unlike eBay, where it's like a one-time offer to one seller, On StockX, it's a permanent offer that stands out there for anybody who comes along and says, okay, yeah, I'll sell you that car at that price.
Yeah, that it is a subtle but massively powerful difference. It is literally an offer to the world. You're telling the whole world, listen, I'm willing to pay whatever it is, $450 for this Giannis rookie. And there may be the guy who hasn't asked there, and I don't know, maybe his ask was say $700. That person will get a notification that says, hey, there's a new highest bid for this car that you have an ask on. So that one person will get a notification. But the whole world can see that. Anybody can come and sell you that Giannis at that bid price that you put there, which, like, by the way, I probably buy 90% of the sneakers that I buy, and I still buy a lot of sneakers, I buy in that manner, right? There's all these like old sneakers that I always wanted to have. And in the old world, I would have had to go to eBay every day and search for them and hope I find a shoe from 2004 in a 10.5 in a good condition. Well, now I can just have these standing bids that are out there. And if that person ever comes along that has that particular shoe in that size, they can sell it to me, because the key is that bid. And this is a big difference from eBay. That bid that you put on that Giannis, that bid that I put on those shoes, it's tied to someone's PayPal or their credit card. It is a live bid, right? Which means that if someone else, if I saw your bid at $450 on Giannis and I have one, I can come and sell it immediately. All I have to do is click sell, and it's sold, and your credit card is charged. You can't back out of that. There's none of this on eBay where on eBay you always have to deal with, is the buyer going to flake? Is the buyer going to pay? Like on StockX, the buyer flake rate is 0. It's literally impossible for a buyer to flake on a sale, which obviously sellers really like. But it's just so powerful to have true consumer demand. And that's this whole thing. StockX, it's just supply and demand. I mean, this is like Econ 101 at its most basic. But it's the demand side that we always had a hard time understanding and a hard time grasping. But if you have your credit card tied to that, like, that is true demand. And that's a really powerful part of it. And that's frankly a lot of the reasons why we've grown so fast.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And so from a seller perspective, this is something that my audience right now, everyone should be thinking about. If you have a card you want to sell and you're looking to sell it in a hurry, you don't want to, put up a long eBay auction or put up a buy it now price that you're willing to sell for on eBay and wait for someone to come along. You could go to StockX right now and just simply look at what the bids are on that particular card. And so if you wanted to, you could go accept the highest bid on StockX for that card that you own right away. And so it can be a pretty effective way of selling a card that you want to sell right away.
Yeah. And, obviously, cards we're just getting started and don't have nearly as much liquidity as we do in the other categories. But, in sneakers and streetwear and collectibles, all of our power sellers, they almost never list anything for sale ever. All they do is go around and just pick off bids. It's easier, it's quicker. They don't have to, and they know, here's what I'm looking to sell, here's what I can sell it for, and they're just like sell, and then ship it all out in one day and make it easy. And like, that really is like, it is a better and is an easier experience for buying, but selling is really I was kind of like a lack of a cliche way of saying it. The truly revolutionary part of this is to enable a seller to sell a card, a pair of shoes, in the same way that you sell a share of stock, right? If you had a share of Nike stock that you wanted to sell, you wouldn't list it for sale and hope someone comes and buys it and write a description and answer questions about your share of Nike stock. No, you go to the market, Nike's trading at $80 and you can sell it at $80 just like that. And that's really what we've done, right? We've made it as easy to sell a pair of Nikes as it is to sell a share of Nike.
And then when they do that, when someone takes the card and says, okay, I'm going to accept that bid and buy this, they just ship it to you, right? So they don't even have to deal with the end customer. They don't have to deal with, like, is there a concern about refunds or, the payment getting revoked from the other person, or does, I guess StockX eliminates all of that?
Yeah. So we sit in the middle. It's anonymous. Buyers and sellers never see each other. Buyers and sellers hate each other. Like,
right.
Sure. Right. It's like, it's a necessary evil. They don't want to. So we now have a massive customer service department, and they now all hate our customer service team, but that's customer service for any e-com. But we sit in the middle of that so that you don't have to deal with the buyers or sellers. And you can work just with one person, a customer service rep, if there are issues. But there really shouldn't be, right? Because we sit in the middle of that. So that seller sends it to us. By the way, once they sell it, they print out a shipping label. It's a prepaid shipping label where sellers are not paying for that shipping, right? And they just put it in and send it to us. And then we are essentially holding that buyer's money in escrow for that time. And so as soon as we get it, we make sure, hey, the card is what it's supposed to be. Great. We release the money to the seller. We send it off to the buyer, and we're good.
Yeah, really, really neat process. Really easy. So as an fellow entrepreneur, fellow startup guy, and when we met, we actually realized we both had connections in Atlanta, being in the startup, ecosystem in Atlanta. Now you're up in New York, but you were in Atlanta a number of years ago. I would love to hear a little bit more about your entrepreneurial story. Like, how did you ever get into this? You mentioned a blog that you were kind of doing this as more of a side thing initially, but StockX, going from nothing to a $1 billion valuation. I mean, that is an amazing entrepreneurial story. I'd love to hear a little more about it.
Yeah. So you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, right?
Sure.
Okay. So Gary and I actually spoke at the National. Mm-hmm. We were on stage there to open up in the VIP, and I told this story there, but as I'll tell it again. So the first time I ever met Gary was right when we were getting StockX off the ground. It was in early 2015, and Gary is just as intense in real life videos and everything else. And we met at this very New York lunch counter sort of place where it was super tight, and we're right next to each other like this, and Gary's here and I'm here, and we're about the same age. Gary's I think is 44 or 45, and I'm 41, and he walks in, and I was there sitting first, and he sits down right next to me, and the first thing he ever said to me was, he's like, you're about my age, candy or baseball cards? And I was like, well, actually both, right? And that's when I was that age, that was the hustle, right? I used to jump the fence behind my house and go to the store and buy gum and blow pops and sell it at school, right? And that was my first hustle. And then it became baseball cards, right? And that was through middle school and part of high school. And so, but back then the word entrepreneur didn't exist.
Right.
It wasn't the word, the internet didn't exist. It was much different. It was a much different time for that. And so I moved to Atlanta to go to college at Emory University. And the first startup I ever started was shortly, I took a job after college, and then the company went bankrupt and I got laid off. And they came in and told me they were laying everyone off, and they said, hey, they were explaining unemployment to me. And I was like, hold on. I was like, I get 300 hours a week. They're like, yeah, it's unemployment. I was like, sweet. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And that was the first thing I ever started. Was, and I had this idea at the time. It was essentially Geek Squad before Geek Squad. It was home computer consulting. This is 2000, 2001. And because of that, and being in Atlanta, I started to look into the Atlanta ecosystem and see, you're an entrepreneur on your own doing this. And you start to just seek out like-minded people. And back then, it was super tiny. The ecosystem there was almost non-existent. And then that actually led to everything else, right? That was the moment. It was I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I'd started to run 3 startups before StockX, but none of them had anything to do with sneakers or cards, almost intentionally separating business and pleasure, in my life. When we were younger, the idea of follow your passion, that wasn't it. It was get a degree or go to grad school, or
become a lawyer, become a doctor. Yeah, the startup kids are the cool kids on college campuses, right? But back then that was certainly not the case.
No, right. And I'm a lawyer. I actually, in between, I went to grad school. I was at JD MBA, also at Emory, right? And I actually worked as a lawyer. But in between every startup, I had some corporate job. And every time I was working on some business on the side while I was doing that corporate job. And that's what happened the last one, which was that I was working at IBM, and I moved from Atlanta to New York to work for IBM. And I was a consultant, and I was doing all this data work at IBM like any other consultant. And I was like, well, I was basically just looking for a side project. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could get all some sneaker data, just to play with, just to see what I could do with it, because there was no price guide for sneakers at the time. I was literally in my head creating the Beckett for sneakers. That's what I was doing back when we created this company that was Campus. So even then, cards were coloring my view of it. It was well, how come there's not a price guide where people can understand what shoes are actually worth?
Right.
And so that was the company that eventually would become StockX, and that was really 2012-ish when we started that idea of that price guide. But if you think about today being StockX being the stock market, a stock market is really just a giant price guide, right? It tells you what the true market price of any asset, any sneaker, any card is at any given time, and that's really the core of what this DNA is always been about. And so for me, it was create the price guide, talk to everybody in the sneaker industry to try to figure out who to work with. I spoke to Nike and eBay and Foot Locker and Complex and Flight Club, and there was never really a good fit of like who to work with and to take this little sneaker data company, this little Beckett for sneakers, and what to do with it. And there's a really long story, but the short of it is I met a guy named Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Sure, yeah.
And loans and pretty much the entire city of Detroit. And the short version is Dan had the exact same idea as me, completely separately, which was to create a stock market for sneakers. And I'd never met him, and I'd never been to Detroit, but we found each other, and I ended up selling Campless to Dan and becoming partners with Dan and turning Campless as the data layer into StockX as the marketplace. And so I moved to Detroit in the summer of 2015, and we started working on what would become StockX. And it was just me and a couple other guys at the time. We sat outside of Dan's office, and now we're about 1,100 people across the world. And it's there's obviously a lot in between that, but those are the highlights, right? It was like I started a bunch of companies, and I finally took what was my passion and personal part of it, and I was super fortunate to find maybe one other guy in the whole world that had the exact same idea at the exact same time, and it happens to be one of the most successful business people in the world. So there's just a lot of like serendipity and luck that happens along the way to help those things, go down. And then to really have an amazing team here at StockX to help me build it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And sure, every entrepreneurial journey involves serendipity and luck, but you also create your own luck through hustle. And your story is one where you absolutely get that, right? You created your own luck through hustle. You were working corporate jobs, yet at the same time, I'm sure you were doing a lot of nights and weekends to get these different business ventures off the ground. You got laid off and you were taking your unemployment check to help fuel, your ability to do some sort of business venture. I mean, it's that type of hustle that then ends up putting you in the position for those types of lucky things to have, which then end up being the big breaks. So that's awesome. I love hearing that story. Thank you very much for sharing that.
No, for sure. Thank you. And I appreciate the kind words. It's one of those things that, at the time you can't ever imagine that you're going to meet a billionaire who's going to have the same idea, right? Or do that. And a lot of times you don't know why you just have to be doing something to push it forward. In the beginning, there were a lot of nights it was just me with Excel spreadsheets trying to clean eBay data to figure out what sneakers are actually being sold. To your point around all the keywords that, get thrown into, like keywords were the bane of my existence for 18 months. It's all I did every night was go write these queries to try to clean out keywords of sneaker auctions to build a price guide, right? And how that led to this, it's crazy, but it's like whatever that, it's always just like one foot in front of the other to do that. You don't go from zero to a billion. It's just one foot in front of the other. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. Thank you very much for sharing. Josh, anything else you wanted to add about StockX that the viewers might want to know?
No, I mean, look, there's, obviously a lot of stuff that we can talk about, and I appreciate that you having me on to talk about. I appreciate, your support. I think you and I both look at the industry and a lot of this in a very similar way. I guess the only other thing that we should mention is, I know you had talked about it and some other people did is, we did this release with Topps about a month ago. Yeah. Where Topps released a new product, what we call an IPO. It's an initial product offering where we did a blind Dutch auction. You did a really good job actually explaining it. And I just want to clarify the difference because Panini has also done something like this recently.
Yes.
Right.
Not as good. So yes, the audience needs to hear this because Panini's is way less friendly to the collector and investor, way more unfair to them than your version of how you guys did it.
Yeah, and look, I absolutely applaud Panini for trying to do something more creative and not just let their site crash and people going there and going out. And who knows? Like maybe we'll work with Panini, one day. Obviously, Topps has been great, been a great partner, and we'll continue to do that. But the core difference is really just how that product gets priced. And in the top StockX IPO, over 90% of the people won that product for less than what their bid was, right? Whereas, and by the way, and they all paid the exact same thing. And that's really like a key tenet to what we think is a fair way to get to price discovery, which is that no matter what it is, if you're releasing a new asset into the market, like everyone's buying the same asset, they should pay the same price. Like otherwise, like someone always feels unfair. Someone always feels like, they got ripped off. And then the other part is, the blind Dutch auction format, which brings it down to a clearing price. And so even if you bid $1,000, you're only going to pay what that clearing price is. It's just a really powerful tool to, one, get to a market value, but also leave room in the market. So if those people want to resell, they can still make a little bit of money. They're not going to make as much money as would have happened, in the way the marketplace exists today, where everybody's trying to get their product to resell it. But there's always going to be a little bit of margin if they want to flip it, or they can just keep it knowing they got a pretty good deal. And I just want to stress, like, we didn't make this up. Like, all we've done is just copy how the stock market works at every turn, including IPOs and blind Dutch auctions. And that's why we think it's the right way. It's like, we didn't make it up. We just copied what's worked really well in the financial sector forever. And I think we're really excited to be able to bring that to cards, because to the point I said earlier, like, cards are the perfect product for StockX, and in particular to do IPOs and release products into the market. And so we hope to be able to do more of them, and really appreciate everyone's support on the Topps IPO. So just thank you to you and your listeners.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, after that Topps IPO, as you mentioned, I did a recap episode, and I said this should be the way that new boxes are released to market in the future. And I said specifically, Panini, you should do this for all of your first off the line releases. And of course they did, but as you said, they did it their own way. And it has, a couple episodes ago, I talked about when they did it with Prism, how there were people who went at the second that went on sale at $1,000 before the price started dropping, they started clicking buy. There were hundreds of boxes sold at between $800 and $1,000. And yet the auction closed at, I think, $290. And there were a ton of boxes sold at that level. So basically, you had a brand new product hit the market where some people had paid $1,000, other people had only paid $290. And the people who paid $1,000, or really anyone who paid above $290, is feeling bad about themselves the next day. The people who are paying $1,000 are feeling horrendously bad about themselves the next day. Whereas with the way that you did it, in the case that I just described, everybody would have bought the box at $290, including the people who bid $1,000. Much more consumer-friendly way of doing it. So, yes, I hope that Topps and Panini work with StockX on doing more of those types of Dutch auctions the way that you do it, not the way that Panini's been doing it. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and even I said to a friend of mine who works at Panini, I was like, look, even if you don't work with us, like, I'm telling you, this is the way. Like, we didn't make it up. Like, we're just copying. Even if you don't do it with us, like, this is a fair way to do it. But either way, I just love to see this, just people open to change in e-commerce. And I think also why trading cards are so great for StockX is, like, it's taken us 4 years to get sneaker brands on board with trying new things and doing that. Whereas, like, I think the card companies are a bit more innovative. Look, Topps tried e-tops back then, and so, like, I think that they're open to these ideas, and I think that's super exciting as well. Yeah, for sure. Josh, this has been a great interview. I've loved hearing more about StockX, learning more about how it worked, and then also talking about your entrepreneurial journey. I really appreciate you joining Sports Card Investor today. Thank you very much. I really appreciate having on. Keep up with the great work. Really enjoy the pod. So does everyone here on the card team. So thanks for all your work. Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Josh Luber. What an awesome story. Love hearing the entrepreneurial journey there. I hope you agree. And if you are now intrigued to try out StockX, do not forget the promo code that is available only for Sports Card Investor listeners, $10 off your purchase of $50 or more using promo code SCIPOD. Again, promo code SCIPOD for $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Okay, folks, it's time. we are going to draw the 10 names that are going to win the spots in the live box break Monday night for Panini Prism. First off the line, I am going to go to my computer, which has all of the entrants of the box break. Here we go. And so this is going to pull, man, we got a ton of entrants. Thank you. As you can see here, thank you for everybody who entered. We are now going to pull the list of winners, and here they are. I have blacked out the second half of the email addresses for people's privacy, but I'm going to read the winners here. First of all, Lauren19119, congratulations. R. Condi, congratulations. And man, he only had a 0.02% chance of winning, but he got into it. Goodness gracious. Congratulations. Benjamin Baker, 1981, congratulations. D. Williams, 1323, congratulations. P. Dummerin, congratulations. M.S. Sloan White, I don't know if that's Miss Sloan White, congratulations. The Williams, 78, congratulations. Joshua Frescott, congratulations. Also only a 0.2% chance of winning, but got the job done, congratulations. Sean G. Dula, congratulations. And then finally, Charge It Up 13. Congratulations. The 10 of you are the 10 winners that will be part of the live box break tomorrow, Monday, December 23rd at 10 p.m. Join my YouTube channel. And even if you were not one of the winners and you want to see the box break, join live tomorrow night, Monday, December 23rd at 10 p.m. This is my holiday gift for you. If you didn't win, do not fret, because I will be doing another giveaway in January where you will have the chance to win some other pretty cool cards. So stay tuned for that. But for those 10 winners, congratulations, happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. It is going to be fun to pop this open. Hopefully we get some one-of-ones or some Zion Silvers or some other really awesome cards in this box. Let's see what we get tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Folks, thank you so much. I hope you can make the box break. Happy holidays to you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you for the box break tomorrow and then seeing you back here next Sunday for the next episode. In the meantime, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Enjoy your holiday. Take care.